this past week?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of upsets in this week. That was the story of this past week. Really, I believe the third biggest upset of the season was on Monday night when the Bengals fell short to the Texans. J.J. Watt made some apparently significant comments after the game, comparing Andy Dalton to the red rifle from the Christmas movie, and Dalton had a response that I thought was kind of absurd. He took it way too seriously. I think there was no way, at least in my opinion, that I thought those comments were meant to harm Dalton in any way. I think Watt was just being silly, and it should have just been a joke, but Dalton thought otherwise of it. But really, a good football team in the Cincinnati Bengals, but Dalton is now, I believe, 1-3 when facing the Texans in his career, including 2 losses in the postseason. But moving to Cincinnati, they play Arizona this week. This would be a great game to bounce back on national TV on Sunday Night Football. Andy Dalton is playing good football. On Monday night, he did not show that. The Texans' defense really got the best of him. They didn't run the ball well, but we've seen times this year where Dalton has been able to step it up for the Bengals. This was not one of those games.
Oh, it was definitely one of those games for Andy Dalton. Just a horrible performance. Give credit to that Texans team. They're now tied for first place in the AFC South. Who would have guessed that? Their defense somehow played great. Probably one of the worst secondaries in football, and they just completely shut down Cincinnati. Great defensive line play. Just a great overall victory for Houston in this game. Let's cover to the Thursday night game, and pretty terrible game for anyone who was colorblind. The Bills taking on the Jets in the Color Rush uniform debut for Nike.
I like the uniforms. I really did like both of them, but they need to wear them in separate occasions. I can't stand Christmas colors on the freaking TV. That looks so terrible. I mean, like I said, I like the jerseys, but not at the same time. They got to definitely differentiate that. A good game, though. It was a good physical football game.
Great performance by the Bills' defense. Great job forcing turnovers. That defensive touchdown on that kickoff is overall just great game by the Bills. So what do you think? Who had the better uniform there? I'm definitely leaning towards the Bills. I think
I'm going with the Jets. I like that green. It was kind of like a Lucky Charm green. I liked it.
I like the green, but I don't like that green on green pants duo they had going there.
It was a little funky, but I could say the same thing with the red. I didn't like the red on red.
I think red on red's definitely better than green on green, though.
I would disagree with you there. I did say the green on green looks sharp.
I don't know. That's debatable. Well, Bills' big victory there. Rex Ryan getting revenge on his old team. I do believe they also showed the Color Rush uniforms for next week, which we'll talk about when we make our predictions. I have some funny comments there, especially with those Jaguars ones. Putrid. Let's go to the next game on the list. We have the Jaguars beating the Ravens on what seemed like a miracle for them. A 15-yard face mask penalty, putting the Jaguars in field goal range and nailing a game winner to make a awful Ravens season even worse. So what do you have for us on this game, Matt?
Well, you know what? I think the Ravens now have 15 players on injured reserve. That's by far, I believe, the most of any team. The Ravens are. This is still a model franchise, in my opinion. You're not gonna make it to the playoffs every single year. This is one of them. They haven't made it. They won't make it this year, but they'll be back on track next year. They need to get healthy. They're paying Joe Flacco quite a bit of money. He doesn't have the best numbers this year. I think he's got to perform better, but the whole team has to perform better as a group. They're not quite doing that right now. They don't have any receivers. Steve Smith injured, banged up as well. I mean, he's on IR. So moving ahead to next year, they need to get healthy. Their first-round pick from last year, Rashard Perriman, will hopefully be healthy. They'll get some receivers and help out Flacco. Justin Forsett, the running back's been all right this year. He hasn't been great, not what he was last year, but he's been efficient enough. So hopefully They get some better offensive line play. They've been banged up. I believe they lost both their left guard and left tackle. So they get healthier next year. They should be all right. As for the Jaguars, Blake Bortles continues not to. I'm not seeing any big improvement. He's improved, yes, but not by a whole lot. He still throws a lot of interceptions. He's throwing the deep ball better. Give him that. But there's
putting up yards, though. That's what he does best. Blake Bortles, putting up yards. But once again, with the turnovers, like you're pointing out, the turnovers are just atrocious with him.
You can throw for all the yards that you want, but when you turn the ball over that much, it's not going to help you win. And in some of the games this year, some of those yards are a little bit misleading because he does get some yards. Exactly, he does get some yards in garbage time.
Yeah, that pretty much does it for that game. Moving on, Browns Steelers. Steelers pulling off a 30-9 victory. Not much in this one. Browns offense couldn't get much going. A great showing by that Steelers defense, who's been solid ever since that opening game against New England. That was the only game they got shredded. After that, they made adjustments, and this game it showed.
Well, yeah, that and the Oakland game. I mean, they gave up 35 points to Oakland at home. But
Oakland, I would consider Oakland probably one of the best offenses in the NFL this year, without a doubt.
I think so, too. Yeah, I would agree with you. But, no, Pittsburgh playing well. They destroyed the Browns, but the Browns obviously see something with Johnny Manziel. They're going to give him the opportunity to start every game from here on out, finishing the season. As for 2016, that's to be determined. But for right now, it looks like Johnny Manziel is going to be the starter in Cleveland. We'll see what he can make of it. There was some glimpses of him doing well, but a lot of work to get done if you're Johnny Manziel and the Cleveland Browns. Otherwise, if he's not going to be the guy, it's back to the drawing board for that. And Cleveland fans know all too well about all the quarterbacks they've had these last 15 years.
Yeah, but the good news is Johnny Manziel, he's shown improvement. He's shown maturity. That should be an interesting story to watch for a few seasons to come. Next game, Panthers beating the Titans 27-10. Nothing much from this game other than a bad Titans team getting beat by a good Panthers team. Great defense by the Panthers.
Yeah, they tried to fight, but Tennessee doesn't have much offense.
Other than the first half. After the first half, it was pretty much a runaway. It wasn't a blowout, but you could just tell that the Titans' offense didn't have what it took to overcome that great Panthers defense. I mean, I think as far as if you're the Titans, you got to be looking to get some more weapons for Mariota. He's got Delaney Walker. That's pretty much about it as far as weapons on offense. They need a solid running back, I think, if the Titans are going to get better after this one.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, Bishop Sankey does not look like he's going to be the running back that they expect him to be. When he came out of Washington, a lot of people expected him to be that number one guy. Apart from him, you look at guys like Dexter McCluster, Antonio Andrews. So these guys aren't your top of the notch type running backs. At receiver, Harry Douglas, Dorial Green Beckham, the draft pick from this year, the big tall target, but not the best hands, not the best route runner. They do need to get some weapons, some true weapons at least. But also protection, I think, is big. Apart from Chance Warmack, the right guard, there's not a whole lot of elite talent up front. So you got to protect your first-round pick. And also, I think they have the pieces on the defense. They have some good players to build around. Aging Brian Arakpo, but they also have Norris Searcy in that back end. Parrish Cox, the cornerback. So they have some good talent on the defensive side of the ball. But offense they should address, I think, in the offseason. That should be their main focal point.
Yeah, definitely. We got to speed it up here. We're moving on to Bears and Rams. Bears beating the Rams 37-13. Jay Cutler having another great game. How many touchdowns did he throw in this one?
I believe 3.
3. I believe his rating was pretty high. Was it close to 150?
Yeah, it was 151. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah, he's having He's having a pretty under the radar season. If you ask me, he's having a good year.
He's bounced back. All that talk on the offseason about how they need to get Cutler out of there, but I think a big part of that though is you got to give some credit to Coach John Fox, head coach John Fox, as well as offensive coordinator Adam Gase. Both of them were in Denver the last few years with Peyton Manning and all of those explosive offenses. they turn the page, they move on to Chicago. Slowly, things are starting to turn for this Chicago team.
Yep, things are looking up for Chicago. This is a team that might even make a surprise postseason run. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. We got to move on to the Cowboys and Buccaneers game. Cowboys, once again, struggling without Tony Romo. It's been a pretty reoccurring theme, I'd say, this season. What's that? 7 straight losses for the Cowboys. It looks like their postseason hopes are gone. Buccaneers pulling off a win. It seems like Jameis Winston doesn't do anything and he gets wins. It's kind of
the thing about that is Winston has a good defense. I mean, Tampa Bay has played well on defense, kind of like the Titans. I mean, they played well too on defense, but really nothing explosive that I'm seeing from Jameis Winston. Not a whole lot of big plays down the field. Against Washington, I think probably was his best performance, but a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah, definitely with Jameis Winston, he have 1 pick in the game. He was just off target, didn't do much, didn't make too many mistakes, but give credit to Tampa's defense again for stepping up. Probably overall a pretty boring game. Dallas once again struggling. Not much to say there for the Cowboys other than they need Romo back bad. All right, time to move on to our game we already covered earlier. On our topic of the week, the Packers falling to the Lions for the first time at Lambeau since, how long was it? It's been like
20 years, I think.
20 years,
something like
20
that.
years. It's been a long time. And this is a surprise result. Green Bay just struggling. Talked about the struggles, slow receivers. Anything else to add, Matt, that we haven't already covered on this one?
No, I think we covered it all for Green Bay.
Yep. So let's move on to the Dolphins and Eagles matchup that happened. Pretty close game. Dolphins pulling it out in the end. They're down for a good portion there. Eagles just not able to get their offense going. A good showing by that defense. Sam Bradford, I believe, went out with an injury in this one.
Yeah, Sam Bradford did get hurt. He had a concussion, and it was also something with his shoulder. X-rays were negative, though, which is good, but he's not going to play this week. And then the following week, I know he's going to be questionable. Mark Sanchez came in relief of him. He threw an interception, something that people who followed Mark Sanchez are quite accustomed to. Got to do a better job taking care of the football. Last year, he filled in for Nick Foles. When Nick Foles went down with the broken collarbone, he didn't play terribly, but he didn't play great to any stretch. But they got to be more efficient on offense. This defense is playing good. It's funny, if the Eagles had this defense back in 2013, they would have been a very, very lethal team, but they don't have the offense, which is funny. I mean, you wouldn't think that a Chip Kelly team like this wouldn't have the offense, but they don't.
Yep, that's definitely a big disappointment from the Eagles in this one. Let's move on to